John Miller looked through the window of the spaceship at the strange purple planet below. He had studied alien life for 15 years, but he had never set foot on a world like Kepler 438b before. The planet had 2 moons and plants with colors humans had never seen. John felt excited, but also a little scared. "Landing in 5 minutes," said the ship's computer voice. "All crew prepare for touchdown." John checked his oxygen mask and the tools in his belt. As the lead scientist on the ship called Horizon, it was his job to collect samples and study any life forms they found. The ship had 20 crew members, all trained for space exploration, but John was the only one who knew how to identify alien biology. The ship shook as it entered the atmosphere. Captain Susan Grant's voice came over the speaker. "We have a problem. Meteor shower detected. Brace for impact." John held tight to his seat as the ship dropped faster than planned. The walls rattled and lights flickered. A loud crash echoed through the ship as something hit the side. After what felt like forever, the ship landed with a hard thump on the planet's surface. "Status report," Captain Grant called out. "Engine 2 is damaged," replied Peter from engineering. "We need at least 3 days to fix it." "Life support systems." "Working," said Diane from her station. "Air outside is toxic to humans, but our suits will protect us." Captain Grant sighed. "Miller, you can still collect your samples, but stay close to the ship. No one goes beyond 1 mile. Understood?" John nodded. This wasn't how he planned his first visit to an alien world, but he would make it work. 2 hours later, John stepped onto the purple soil of Kepler 438b. The gravity felt a little lighter than Earth, making each step feel bouncy. He breathed carefully through his mask, looking at the strange plants around him. They had leaves that seemed to glow slightly in the orange light of the planet's sun. "Amazing," he whispered to himself as he collected samples of soil and plants. He took pictures of insect-like creatures with 6 wings and recorded the sounds of the forest. John had walked about half a mile from the ship when he heard something move in the bushes ahead. He froze. The mission briefing had mentioned no large animals on this planet, but their scans had been limited. "Hello?" John called out, feeling foolish. Whatever it was probably couldn't understand him. The rustling grew louder. John reached for the small laser cutter on his belt. Not a weapon, but better than nothing. He stepped back slowly. From the glowing purple plants emerged a small figure. John blinked twice, not believing what he saw. It looked like a child, but clearly not human. The being stood about 3 feet tall, with skin that shimmered blue in the sunlight. Its eyes were large and almond-shaped, with no visible pupils, just silver orbs that reflected the twin moons visible in the sky. It had no hair, but delicate patterns marked its skin. The creature wore what looked like a simple wrap made from fibers similar to the glowing plants. John stood perfectly still, afraid to scare the alien child. He slowly reached for the translation device on his wrist, a new technology that could process unknown languages and find patterns. He held it up, showing it to the child. "Hello," he said simply. "I won't hurt you." The device made a soft humming sound as it recorded the encounter. The alien child tilted its head, studying John with those moon-like eyes. Then it made a series of clicks and whistles. The translator beeped, but showed only insufficient data for translation. John tried again. "My name is John." He pointed to himself. "John." The child seemed to understand the gesture. It pointed to itself and made a musical sound that John couldn't hope to repeat. "Nice to meet you," John said with a smile, though he realized the child probably couldn't see his expression behind his mask. The alien child suddenly looked over its shoulder, its posture tense. It pointed toward a distant hill. John followed the gesture, and saw smoke rising from what looked like a settlement. The structures were unlike anything human curved shapes that seemed to grow from the ground itself. The smoke wasn't the good kind. It was dark and thick. Something was burning. The child made more sounds, urgent now. It grabbed John's gloved hand and pulled, pointing again at the smoke. John didn't need a translator to understand. Something bad had happened there. "Your home?" John asked, pointing to the smoke. The child nodded, a surprisingly human gesture. It then made a sweeping motion with its hands and dropped to the ground, lying still for a moment before looking up at John with those silver eyes. "Everyone gone?" John guessed, his heart sinking. The child stood and nodded again, then made a sound that needed no translation. It was a sob. The sun was setting now, and the temperature dropped quickly. The alien child shivered, its blue skin taking on a darker shade. John checked his suit readings. It would be below freezing within an hour. He faced a decision. Protocol said to report the finding and wait for instructions. No unknown life forms on the ship without proper containment. Those were the rules. But the child was alone, obviously frightened, and the night was coming fast. John looked back toward the horizon, barely visible through the strange trees. Then he looked at the small alien child, shivering in the growing cold. Rules were important, but some things were more important. "Come with me," John said, offering his hand. "Let's get you somewhere warm." The child hesitated, looking back toward the smoking settlement one last time. Then it placed its small hand in John's. Even through his glove, John could feel how cold the child's fingers had become. As they walked back to the ship, the twin moons of Kepler 438b rose fully in the sky, casting silver light that matched the child's eyes. John knew Captain Grant would be furious. He knew he was breaking every protocol in the book. But as the alien child walked beside him, occasionally looking up at him with what he could only interpret as trust, John knew he couldn't have done anything else. What he didn't know was how. This moment would change everything for him, for the crew, and perhaps for the relationship between two very different worlds. John walked toward the ship with the alien child beside him. His heart beat fast as he thought about what Captain Grant would say. Breaking rules about alien contact was serious. As they got closer to the horizon, the child slowed down and looked up at the huge metal ship with wide silver eyes. "It's okay," John said softly, even though he knew the child couldn't understand his words. "This is where I live for now." The ship's door was guarded by Paul Harris, a security officer with a stern face and broad shoulders. When Paul saw John with the alien child, his mouth fell open and he reached for his radio. "Captain Grant, we have a situation at the main door." Paul said into his radio, "Miller is back and he's not alone." John stepped forward. "The child needs help. Its home was destroyed. I couldn't leave it out there to freeze." Paul frowned, but moved aside to let them enter. Inside the ship, crew members stopped what they were doing and stared. Some looked curious, others worried. The alien child stayed, close to John, holding on to his suit with small blue fingers. Captain Susan Grant appeared at the end of the hallway. Her face turned from surprise to anger when she saw the alien. She marched toward them, her boots making loud sounds on the metal floor. "Miller, what have you done?" she demanded. "You know the rules. No unknown life forms on board without proper testing." "She would have died out there," John replied, realizing he had started thinking of the child as female. "Look at her, she's just a child who lost her home." The captain crossed her arms. "How do you know it's not dangerous? How do you know it's even a child? Alien biology isn't like ours." The alien child seemed to sense the tension. She moved slightly behind John, peeking at the captain with those moon-like eyes. "Dr. Ford can examine her. John suggested, referring to the ship's medical officer. "We have the containment area in the lab. She can stay there until we know she's safe." Captain Grant thought for a long moment, then nodded. "Fine, but this is on you, Miller. If anything goes wrong, it's your responsibility." John led the child to the ship's laboratory. The room had a clear glass area designed to study samples safely. It had a bed, air filters, and monitoring equipment. John showed the child where she would stay, trying to make it seem less like a cage and more like a safe place. Dr. Alan Ford arrived wearing a protective suit. He was older than John, with kind eyes and steady hands. "Well," Dr. Ford said, looking at the blue-skinned child, "this is a first for me." The doctor worked carefully, scanning the child with various devices. The alien girl stayed calm, but watched everything with curious eyes. After an hour of tests, Dr. Ford stepped out of the containment area and removed his helmet. "She's not dangerous to us," he announced. "Her biology is different, but she doesn't carry anything harmful. She's female, based on her anatomy, and I'd guess she's similar to an 8-year-old human child in development." "Can she understand us?" John asked. "Her brain activity suggests high intelligence," Dr. Ford replied. "And look at this." He pointed to a screen showing brain wave patterns. "When you speak, these areas light up. She's trying to understand." The ship's computer expert, Diane Lai, joined them with a small device in her hand. "I've modified the translation matrix to work with the sounds you recorded," she explained. "It might help us communicate." Diane placed the device near the glass. The alien child looked at it with interest. "Hello," John said clearly. "My name is John." The device made a series of musical clicks. The alien child's eyes widened. She responded. With similar sounds. The translator crackled, then produced a rough approximation. "Hello, I am ... The last word came out as a melodic sound that human vocal cords couldn't make. "We need a name for her," Diane suggested. "Something we can pronounce." The alien child touched the glass where the translator sat. She made more sounds. The device translated: home gone, family gone, fire and loud noise. John felt a pain in his chest at her words. "What happened to your home?" he asked gently. The translator worked slowly as the child explained. Her people, who called themselves something like Castrian, had been fighting among themselves. Two groups disagreed about how to use the planet's resources. Her village had been caught in the middle of the conflict. "Parents say hide," the child said through the translator. "Say they find me later." But no one had come for her. She had been alone in the forest for what seemed like several days before John found her. Captain Grant, who had been listening from the doorway, stepped forward. "Ask her if there are others like her nearby. Other villages or settlements." John relayed the question. The child's answer was clear even before the translation. She shook her head sadly. "Far away," the translator conveyed. "Many days walking. Those places fight too." As night fell on the alien planet, the crew gathered to discuss what to do. The ship's repairs would take 3 more days. After that, they needed to decide, should they try to find other Astrians to take the child, or should they take her with them when they left? "Regulations say we should leave her with her own kind," Captain Grant pointed out. "Her own kind are at war," John countered. "She's lost everything. We can't just abandon her." Later that night, after the others had gone to their sleeping quarters, John sat near the containment area. The alien child hadn't slept. She sat on the edge of the bed, watching him. "I'm sorry about your home," John said softly. The translator conveyed his words. The child tilted her head. "You helped me. Why?" John thought about it, because it was the right thing to do. She seemed to consider this answer. Then she asked through the translator, "What happened to me now?" John wished he had a good answer. "I don't know yet, but I'll help you. I promise." The child moved closer to the glass. In the dim light of the lab, her silver eyes seemed to glow. She placed her small blue hand against the barrier. "Will you be my father?" The translator whispered. John felt something break inside him. Tears filled his eyes before he could stop them. He placed his hand against the glass, matching hers on. The other side, he wasn't ready for this. He wasn't ready for the responsibility, for the emotion, for the way this small alien child had already changed everything. But as he looked at her hopeful face, he knew there was only one answer he could give. "Yes," he said simply. "If that's what you want, yes." And for the first time since he'd found her, the alien child smiled. The next morning, Dr. Ford said the alien child could leave the glass room. She was not sick or dangerous. Captain Grant was not happy about this decision, but she agreed when the doctor explained that keeping the child locked up was not good for her mind or body. "She needs to move around," Dr. Ford said. "She needs to eat proper food and feel safe." John was waiting when they opened the door to the containment area. The alien child stepped out slowly, looking around at everything, with her silver eyes. When she saw John, she made a happy sound and moved to his side. "She trusts you," Dr. Ford noted with a smile. "That's good." The ship's cook, Bill Green, had studied the results of the child's tests and made food that would be safe for her too. "Eat." It looked like blue pudding, but it had all the things her body needed. The child ate it quickly. She had been very hungry. "We need to call her something," Diane said as they all watched the child eat. "We can't just keep saying, 'the alien child,' or 'she.'" The translator was getting better at understanding the child's language. When they asked what her name was, she made a beautiful sound like singing. The humans tried to say it, but their mouths could not make the right sounds. "What about Lyra?" John suggested. "It's the name of a group of stars. It sounds a little like what she's saying." The child seemed to like this. She pointed to herself and tried to say, "Lyra." It came out strange with her different mouth shape, but everyone understood. From that moment on, she was Lyra. 3 days passed. The ship's engines were almost fixed. Soon they would need to leave the planet. Captain Grant called a meeting with all the senior crew. "We need to decide what to do about Lyra," she said. "The rules say we should leave her with her own people." "But her people are fighting," John argued, "and she has no family left." "We could look for another settlement," suggested Paul from security. "One that's not involved in the fighting." Lyra was with Diane, learning to use the ship's computer. The translator was now small enough to wear on her wrist like a bracelet. They called her to the meeting room and asked her about other settlements. "All fighting," Lyra said through the translator. "All dangerous now." Her silver eyes looked at each person around the table. "I stay with John," she added. "He is my father now." Some of the crew looked uncomfortable. Others seemed touched by her words. Captain Grant sighed. "This isn't a simple matter," she said. "Taking an alien child back to Earth will cause many problems. What kind of people would we be if we left her here to die?" John asked quietly. In the end, they decided to take Lyra with them. Captain Grant would explain to Earth Space Command that it was an emergency situation. They would say Lyra was a diplomatic guest, until better arrangements could be made. The ship lifted off from Kepler 438b the next day. Lyra watched through a window as her home planet grew smaller. John stood beside her, wondering if she was sad. "Will you miss your world?" he asked through the translator. Lyra was quiet for a moment. "Yes," she finally said. "But my family is gone. My village is gone." She looked up at John. "You are my family now," The journey back to Earth would take 6 months. During this time, Lyra learned many things. She learned to speak English, starting with simple words and moving to full sentences. She learned about Earth and humans. She learned the rules of the ship and how to help with small tasks. The crew, who had been unsure about Lyra at first, began to like her. She was smart and eager to learn. She was also kind and never complained, even when things were hard for her. Diane taught Lyra to play chess. At first, Lyra did not understand the game. On her world, games were about working together, not beating each other. But soon she became very good at chess, often winning against Diane. Bill, the cook, learned what foods Lyra liked best and made special meals for her. Engineer Peter showed her how the ship's engines worked. Even Paul from security, who had been most worried about having an alien on board, taught Lyra how to do exercises to stay strong in space. Captain Grant watched all this with mixed feelings. She was still worried about what would happen when they reached Earth. But even she had to admit that Lyra had become part of their crew family. One day, about halfway through their journey home, Captain Grant found John in the observation room. He was watching Lyra, who was helping Bill clean up after dinner. "You've taken on a big responsibility," Captain Grant said. "Being a father is not easy. Being a father to an alien child will be even harder." John nodded. "I know, but when she asked me that night, I couldn't say no. What will you do when we reach Earth? There will be scientists who want to study her, government people who want to question her. It won't be simple. We'll face those problems when they come," John said. "For now, I'm just trying to help her feel safe and learn what she needs to know." Captain Grant watched Lyra for a moment longer. "She's changed you," she observed. John smiled. "Is that a bad thing?" "No," the captain admitted. "I think it's good." That night, John helped Lyra get ready for bed. She had a small room next to his now, with a bed adjusted to fit her smaller size. The lights were dimmer, more like the light on her home world. "John," Lyra said as he was about to leave. Her English was getting better every day. "What is Earth like?" John sat on the edge of her bed. "It's beautiful in many ways. There are oceans and mountains and forests. The sky is blue, not purple like your world. There's only one sun and one moon. Will people be nice to me?" Lyra asked. Her silver eyes looked worried. John wanted to say yes, that everyone would welcome her. But he knew that wasn't true. Some people would be afraid of her. Some might even be unkind. "Many people will be nice," he said honestly. "Some won't be. But I will always protect you, and our friends on this ship will too." Lyra thought about this, then nodded. "That is enough," she said. As John turned to go, Lyra said one more thing. "I am glad you found me in the forest." John felt that same tightness in his chest, the same feeling he had when she first asked him to be her father. "I'm glad too," he said softly. "Now get some sleep. We have a long journey ahead." As the ship moved through the darkness of space toward Earth, John wondered what the future would hold for them. He didn't know if he was ready for the challenges that waited, but he knew he would face them for Lyra's sake. The horizon was only 1 week away from Earth. Captain Grant spent a lot of time in video meetings with Earth Space Command. The people in charge were not happy about Lyra. They had many questions and concerns. "They want to put her in a special research center when we land," Captain Grant told John after one long meeting. "They say it's for her safety and for scientific study." John shook his head. "No, she's not a lab animal. She's a child." "I tried to explain that," Captain Grant said. "They don't see it the same way we do. They see an alien species, not a little girl." John found Lyra in the ship's small library area. She was reading a book about Earth animals. Her English was very good now, though she still had a musical way of speaking that made her words sound like singing. "Lyra, we need to talk," John said, sitting next to her. "Earth is getting closer. When we arrive, some people might want to separate us." Lyra's silver eyes grew wide with worry. "Why? Did I do something wrong?" "No, not at all," John assured her. "But you're the first person from another planet to visit Earth. Some people will be curious about you. Others might be afraid." "I would never hurt anyone," Lyra said. "I know that. But they don't know you like we do." John had been thinking about this problem for weeks. He had an idea, but it would mean breaking more rules. He would need help from the crew. That evening, he called a private meeting with the people who had become closest to Lyra. Dr. Ford, Diane, Bill, Peter, and even Paul from security. Captain Grant was not invited. She could not know about their plan. "Earth Space Command wants to take Lyra for study when we land," John explained. "I can't let that happen. I promised to protect her." "What can we do?" asked Diane. "We can't fight the government." "No," John agreed, "but we can give them a reason to let her stay with me." John explained his plan. Dr. Ford would create medical records showing that Lyra needed special care that only John knew how to provide. Diane would help with the legal documents to make John Lyra's official guardian. Peter and Paul would create a distraction during landing to give them time to leave the ship before officials arrived. Bill would prepare special food supplies that Lyra would need. "This could cost all of us our jobs," Dr. Ford warned. "Maybe worse." "I know," John said. "I won't ask you to risk that." The room was quiet for a moment. Then Paul, who had once been most afraid of Lyra, spoke up. "I'll help," he said. "She's one of us now." One by one, they all agreed. Even if they lost their jobs, they could not let Lyra be treated like a science experiment. 3 days before reaching Earth, Captain Grant called John to her office. Her face was serious. "The crew's acting strange," she said. "They're keeping secrets. What's going on, Miller?" John considered lying, but he respected the captain too much. "We're making plans to protect Lyra," he admitted. "Earth Space Command wants to take her away for study. We can't let that happen." Captain Grant's face showed no emotion. "You realize this is against every rule in the book. It could end all your careers." "Yes, Captain." Grant was quiet for a long time. Then she sighed. "You're putting me in an impossible position, Miller." "I'm sorry, Captain. But Lyra is my responsibility now." Captain Grant stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the stars. "Get out of my office," she said finally. "I don't want to hear any more about this." John left, feeling defeated. The captain would surely report their plan now. The next day, Captain Grant called another meeting. This time, she invited all the crew members who were part of John's plan. John felt sick. This was the end of their careers. "I know what you've been planning," Captain Grant said when they were all seated. She looked at each of them. "And I'm disappointed." The room was silent. No one looked at each other. "I'm disappointed," she continued, "that you didn't include me in your plan. It needs work." John looked up in surprise. Captain Grant had a small smile on her face. "If we're going to do this," she said, "we need to do it right. With the captain's help, the plan became much better. She had connections on Earth who could help. She knew ways to make the landing safer for Lyra. Most importantly, she had already started legal proceedings to make Lyra an official diplomatic visitor, rather than a research subject. The day before they reached Earth, Lyra found John in his room. He was packing his things into a small bag. "Are you afraid?" she asked. John nodded. "A little. Earth might not be ready for you, Lyra." "I am ready for Earth," she said with confidence. She sat next to him. The captain showed me pictures of your home. It has trees and a small lake nearby. She did? John was surprised. When? Yesterday? She said I should know where I will live. Lyra took something from her pocket. It was a small drawing she had made of herself and John standing in front of a house. Will it look like this? John felt tears in his eyes. Yes, he said. Something like that. When the horizon entered Earth's orbit, news spread quickly. Alien visitor arriving was the top story on every channel. People gathered near the landing site, some with welcome signs, others with protest signs. Security was heavy. The landing went smoothly. As planned, Peter created a small problem with the engines that needed immediate attention. This caused confusion among the officials waiting to board. During this time, John, Lyra, and Dr. Ford slipped out through a service exit where Captain Grant's friend waited with a car. Good luck, Dr. Ford said, hugging Lyra goodbye. Remember to take your supplements every day. I will, Lyra promised. Will I see you again? Of course, Dr. Ford assured her. This isn't goodbye forever. As they drove away from the landing site, Lyra looked out the window at her new planet. The sky was blue, the sun was bright, and everything seemed so different from her home world. She felt both excited and scared. What happens now? She asked John. Now we go home, John said. My sister Kate knows we're coming. She's prepared a room for you. We'll stay there until things calm down. And then? John took her small blue hand in his. Then we figure it out together, one day at a time. Lyra nodded and continued to watch the world go by outside the window. She didn't know what would happen next, but she knew she wasn't alone anymore. She had John. She had a father. For now, that was enough. 3 years passed since Lyra first came to Earth. John's sister Kate had welcomed them into her home by the lake. She had been shocked at first to see a blue-skinned alien child, but she quickly grew to love Lyra's kind heart and curious nature. The first few months had been hard. Government officials found them, and there were many meetings. Captain Grant and her crew testified that Lyra was not dangerous. They said she was an orphan who needed a home, not a laboratory. Dr. Ford showed his medical records proving that. Lyra needed special care that only John could provide. After much debate, the government allowed John to be Lyra's legal guardian. There were conditions: regular health checks, interviews with scientists, and security people who watched their house. But they were together, and that was what mattered most. Now, at age 11, or what seemed like 11 in human years, Lyra lived a life that was almost normal. She could not go to regular school because she looked too different, but Diane had left the space program to become Lyra's teacher. They worked together in a small classroom that John had built in the backyard. Lyra wore special sunglasses outside because Earth's sun was brighter than her home world's sun. She took medicine that Dr. Ford had created to help her body adjust to Earth's food and air. Her skin had changed from bright blue to a softer blue-gray color as she adapted to her new home. John had left the space program too. He now worked from home, writing books about alien biology based on his experiences. His first book, about the plants of Kepler 438b, had been very successful. But his most important job was being Lyra's father. On a warm summer morning, John sat on the porch drinking coffee. Lyra was at the edge of the lake, collecting small rocks and watching birds. She loved Earth's animals, especially birds, which had not existed on her home planet. Kate came out and sat next to her brother. You've done a good job with her, she said. Remember how scared she was when you first arrived? John nodded. Lyra had been terrified of the sounds of Earth. The birds, the wind in the trees, the distant cars. Everything had been new and frightening. Now she moved through the world with confidence. "Did you hear the news?" Kate asked. "They've made contact with Lyra's planet again. The war is over." John felt his heart skip. "When?" "The message came through last night. It's all over the news this morning." John hadn't turned on his computer yet. He'd been enjoying the peaceful morning. Now he felt a mix of emotions. Hope that Lyra's people had found peace, but fear about what this might mean for them. Later that day, Captain Grant called. She was an admiral now, in charge of all missions to Kepler 438b. "It's true," she confirmed. "The Astrians have established peace. They've formed a united government and want to open diplomatic relations with Earth." "That's good news," John said cautiously. "There's more," Admiral Grant continued. "They know about Lyra. They want to send representatives to meet her." John sat down heavily. "When?" "Next month. They're sending a small ship with 3 diplomats." After the call ended, John went to find Lyra. She was in her room, reading a book about ocean creatures. When he told her the news, her silver eyes grew wide. "My people are coming here?" she asked. "To see me?" "Yes. They want to meet you and talk about making friendship between our worlds." Lyra was quiet for a long time. "Will they want me to go back with them?" The question John had been dreading. "I don't know," he admitted. "Would you want to go?" Lyra looked around her room, at the books and drawings and small treasures she had collected in her time on Earth. Through her window, birds flew past, and the lake sparkled in the sun. "I don't know," she said honestly. "I don't remember much about my world anymore." The month passed quickly. John helped Lyra remember her native language, which she had mostly forgotten. They looked at pictures of Kepler 438b and talked about what it might be like now that the war was over. On the day the Astrian ship was due to arrive, many important people gathered at a special landing area. The president was there, along with scientists and military leaders. John and Lyra stood with Admiral Grant and the old crew of the Horizon. The Astrian ship was beautiful, like a silver leaf floating down from the sky. When it landed, 3 tall figures emerged. They looked like adult versions of Lyra, with blue skin and silver eyes, but with patterns on their skin that showed their rank and family. The tallest one approached Lyra and spoke in their musical language. Lyra responded slowly, searching for the right words. The translator helped when she couldn't remember. The meeting lasted several hours. The Astrians explained that Lyra's village had been rebuilt. Some of her distant relatives had survived the war and wanted to meet her. They invited her to visit her home planet. "You could stay for as long as you wish," the lead diplomat said. "You could learn about your people, your history." Lyra looked at John, her eyes full of questions. John forced himself to smile. "It's your choice," he said, though it hurt to say the words. "I want what's best for you." That night, Lyra was quiet as they drove home. The Astrians had given her gifts, beautiful clothes made from the glowing plants of her world, recordings of their music, a map of the rebuilt villages. As they sat on the porch watching the sunset, Lyra finally spoke. "They want me to decide by tomorrow." John nodded, not trusting himself to speak. "They said I could be important for both our worlds," Lyra continued. "A bridge between humans and Astrians." "That's true," John said. "You understand both worlds in a way no one else does." Lyra looked up at the darkening sky. Soon the stars would be visible, including the distant sun of Kepler 438b. "I told them I would go," she said quietly. John felt his heart breaking, but he nodded. "I understand." "It's your home." "For a visit," Lyra interrupted. "I told them I would visit for 3 months to learn about my people. Then I would return to Earth." John looked at her in surprise. "You're coming back?" Lyra took his hand. Her blue fingers were longer now, but they still fit perfectly in his. "You asked me once what home meant to me," she said. "I've been thinking about that. Home isn't just where you were born. It's where you belong." She looked around at the lake, the trees, the house they had shared for 3 years. "This is my home now. You are my family." John couldn't hold back his tears. "I thought I was going to lose you." Lyra shook her head. "Remember when I asked you to be my father? You said yes." "That was a promise." "Always," John whispered. "Always," Lyra agreed. The next day, they met with the Austrian diplomats again. The arrangements were made for Lyra's visit. John would go with her as Earth's representative. They would learn about Austrian culture and help build friendship between the two worlds. As they left the meeting, a reporter stopped them. "Lyra, how does it feel to reconnect with your people?" Lyra thought for a moment. "Good," she said simply. "But Earth is my home now." "Because of your adopted father?" the reporter asked, looking at John. Lyra smiled, her silver eyes reflecting the sunlight. "Yes, he found me when I was lost. He gave me a family when I had none. He taught me that home isn't just a place." She looked up at John. "It's where love is." John felt the tears come again, just as they had that night 3 years ago when a small alien girl had whispered those life-changing words. He still wasn't ready for the emotions that flooded through him. But now he understood. He didn't need to be ready. He just needed to be there. And he always would be.